What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is my review for the 2024 movie, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. So this is the 5th entry in the God's Not Dead series, and I actually came prepared. Going to the theater, I actually brought a notepad where I wrote down some things. In short, I'll say this: if you need to know the premise going into, I will explain. The premise is how, amid political and spiritual turmoil, Reverend David Hill steps up to run for Congress. Opponent Peter Kane decides to aim to erase religion from policy, and the fight becomes a beacon for people seeking moral leadership in a divided world. So I didn't know that premise going into this movie because I usually try to go into movies blind. But going in with that expectations of, hey, this movie's going to really tackle the division between, two sides, you're not going to get that with this movie. If you've seen the other 4 entries, you kind of know what to expect. If you really dug the themes and messages that were tackled in the other 4 entries, this is more of the same. If you believe with what this movie, what the other movies were saying in regards to the themes and messages, you'll also really like this movie in terms of the themes and messages. If you were also able to accept the filmmaking of the other 4 entries, you'll be able to do so here. And if you found the other 4 entertaining, you'll find this one entertaining too. There's really nothing I can say that's going to, change your mind. I did want to discuss the movie though itself, because I think that I was kind of baffled early on, like the first 20 minutes of this movie, I would say. I didn't think it was bad. In fact, I was kind of perplexed. I was like, wait a minute, like, this has potential. Because the first 20 minutes, like, there was actually some camera movement that was interesting. I also thought that the usage of color early on was interesting. Like, there were some blue color gels that were utilized, and it was interesting. And I also thought that it wasn't too heavy-handed. Like, it was, of course, heavy-handed, but it wasn't, like, bashing you over the skull with a hammer yet. So I was like, this has potential. And the premise itself did intrigue me. Like, on paper, literally, it seemed interesting. But then the rest of the movie continued, and I've just kind of realized that I'm desensitized by this series. Like, the 3rd entry, I think that it didn't really, like, outrage me, per se. But I watched it kind of out of order. I watched the 3rd one, then I watched 1 and 2, and then I watched the 4th one. And the 4th one, genuinely speaking, made me angry. In fact, you can watch my review for the 4th entry. It really grinded my gears. And I was kind of expecting that with this one too, but I can't really say that it grinded my gears too much. And the reason is because I'm desensitized by all this. Like, this is one of those situations where everything that it's saying I've heard before in the other entries, so it feels like more or less the same. Like, it's just with less impact. And I don't know about the target audience, if it's going to really hit them. I'm actually kind of curious if it's going to hit them with this entry. But I will say that, again, I think that if you like the other entries, you'll like it. What I will say is this: I wrote down notes, and I just want to briefly discuss them. I actually wrote it in order to, like, as I was watching the movie. I'll say this, though. Again, the first 20 minutes did interest me at first, but then as the movie progressed, it just, like I said, it just pretty much followed the greatest hits of the series, and it just, I had a lot of issues with it from then onwards. I didn't like the soundtrack. I didn't like the score. The storytelling was very meh. The directing was uninteresting. The villains, just the characterization of them was just laughable. Even the hero, the journey, just really isn't that interesting. Like, all the character arcs fall flat. The dialogue is very expository heavy. And on top of that, it's very heavy-handed with the messages and the themes that it's tackling. There's no nuance to this movie, but again, you probably expected that. And the ending is just, like, baffling. Like, you're like, okay, I guess they're going to be making a sequel. Got it. But I didn't really take anything away from this movie. But, so yeah, I didn't like this movie. It's probably the worst movie I've seen so far this year. But again, let's talk about now some of the things that I wrote down. So the first thing that I wrote down was government took away church funds because of Bible study. When I heard that at the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh boy, like, I'm in for a ride. Like, really, like, this is, tell me more. And they never discuss it fully. Someone says goose silly instead of silly goose. I was perplexed by that. I was like, wait, what? Anyways, separation of church and state by a senator is bad. It means they will take away public funding of churches. Someone actually says this in the movie, and I was like, okay. Truth gets people canceled these days. That's an actual line from a character in a movie, and okay. Newsboys are in this movie again. They were in the first entry, and yeah, their music is very distracting in this one as well. Bad guys against xenophobia, and there's a scene, I kid you not, while it's an advertisement that's talking about, how he's against xenophobia, and it's like, supposed to be like, oh, that's a bad thing that he's against xenophobia. And then all of a sudden, randomly, they show January 6th footage. It was honestly baffling. I was like, what? Anyways, the solution to the division is spirituality, apparently. Religion is apparently the most important question to ask politicians during a debate. Speaking of the debate, the first debate was just, the way it was outlined was just very like, huh? Bad guy is for scholars running the country, which, you know, the way he worded it, of course, is very like, you know, cartoonish, where it's like, scholars are, you know, the ones that need to run it and not anybody that's involved in religion. It's like, okay, so you haven't had a conversation with anyone outside your religion. Got it, in regards to like the writers. Someone talking too much is seen as being set up. Yeah, like, again, so frustrating. I was like, really, dude, you said too much. Like, you could have said less, and then you wouldn't have like been set up. I guess this movie is frustrating me. Bad guy gives sinister laugh. This happens throughout the movie, which was also like, really? Someone replaces opponent political sign with their own. Yeah, like, I was like, okay, like, this is the same type of crowd that believes that, you know, that votes are being taken out and replaced, and yet a sign's getting replaced, and this is supposed to be the good guy doing it. Big government spreads like cancer. Again, it's just a throwaway line, but I was like, okay, I feel like you need to follow up on that. There's a laughable debate scene. The Christian nation is universal health care. Oh no, universal health care is bad. Christian nation is what we need. Churches will be closed unless they get up to building codes. Yeah, this I was just like, dear God, like, really? Like, just follow the building codes. It's not that hard. Like, oh gosh. But again, it's just the fact that not being up to date with your building codes is looked at as like an attack on Christianity. I was like, really? Okay. Extreme heat, like fire heat. That's an actual line of dialogue. I wrote that down because I was like, okay, you could have said one or the other or worded it differently. Push faith in the political sphere is a good thing. Okay. Political system is broken because good people let me go back. Political system is broken, causes good people to do bad things. Sorry, I wrote it down a little bit incorrectly because, again, it's a dark theater. I'm writing this down. Newsboy pray for David to win election. Not going to spoil if that, you know, works or not. Oh, here's another thing. Prayer being removed in school equals religious freedom being persecuted. China's Cultural Revolution equals Christian persecution in America. They are one and the same. Mark that down. Pastor gives a speech about fighting the good fight, and everyone cheers. Apparently, up until this speech, Christians were scared how they can't do anything. They can't vote, and now they can finally mobilize. So yeah, these are some of the things that actually happened in this movie. And again, I didn't spoil anything. Like, these are all things that aren't like big plot points. These are all mostly talking points that the script fumbles in regards to its delivery. So I'm tired. I think that this entry was terrible. It's not the worst. I think that arguably the fourth entry is the worst so far. But this one is by no means a good movie. In fact, it's a terrible movie. But at the same time, I am going to give credit where credit's due. If you like this movie, I can respect that. And hopefully you can respect me not liking it. I just personally think that the messages were very heavy-handed, and I think that in regards to these themes that are being tackled, you need to handle them in a nuanced way if you actually want to get past your base, if you actually want to get, you know, towards people that, you know, might not necessarily follow your same faith, which is okay. For myself, I do like films that tackle spirituality. Like, I think that that's something that can be very fascinating. And that also, as someone that grew up in this faith, like, it's also something that, you know, I've seen films that actually tackle in an interesting way, such as like Silence or First Reformed or Last Temptation of Christ. All films that handle it in a very nuanced way and also a very, very complex way. So I like religion, I like spirituality. I just want it to be tackled in a way that's actually thought-provoking, as opposed to just garnering either laughs or just boredom. So for me, God's Not Dead and God We Trust, I'm going to give it a... But hey guys, that's my thoughts on God's Not Dead and God We Trust. You know, let me know your thoughts in regards to this movie in the comment section down below, or if you've seen any of these movies in the franchise. As you can tell, I am tired after watching this movie, kind of, you know, exhausted in regards to what I went through. But, you know, of course, if we get a 6th, 7th, 8th, which we probably will, I'll check them out. I'll still try to give them a chance. But, you know, again, let me know your thoughts in regards to the movie in the comment section. And as always, guys, I really do appreciate you guys for watching. If you haven't done so already, don't forget subscription, notification bell, follow me down Letterboxd, Patreon, and I will catch you guys later.